Okay, so in this video we're going to look at different types of patterns, linear, quadratic, cubic, exponential patterns. And we're going to look at number patterns in particular. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how to recognize these different types of patterns. So when you see a sequence of numbers, which one of these pattern types is it? So let's start by looking at linear patterns. So we're going to look at linear first of all. Okay, so let's just take a sequence of numbers. Let's take 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. So if we look at this, generally what we start doing is look at the differences between each successive pairs of numbers. So if we look at, we do this kind of thing here, it helps. What do we have to do to 20 to get 30? Well, we add 10. What do we have to do to 30 to get 40? We also add 10. 40 to 50, we're adding 10. 50 to 60, we're also adding 10. So we have this sequence of numbers. We've looked at the differences between each successive pairs of numbers, and we found that the number is always the same. We're constantly just adding 10 to each number to get the next number. So this number 10 here is just called the first change, or the first difference. So because it's always the same, because it's always 10, we say that this sequence of numbers forms a linear pattern. Okay, so now let's look at the next one, which is quadratic. Quadratic, okay. So let's look at this. Let's take the numbers, let's see, 4, 13, 28, 49, 76. Okay, so we look at these numbers. So we're going to do exactly the same as what we did up here. We're going to look at the differences between these numbers. So we'll do this first. The difference between 4 and 13 is going to be plus 9. The difference between 13 and 28, we're going to add 15. The difference between 28 and 49, we're going to add 21. And the difference between 49 and 76, we're going to add 27. Okay, so we can see this is our first change, or our first difference here, and the numbers are not always the same. So what we're going to do is do it again. So the difference between 9 and 15 is plus 6. Here it's also plus 6, and between 21 and 27 is also plus 6. This was our first difference here. This thing here, these numbers here, these sixes here, called our second change or difference. And we can see that the second change, or the second difference, is always the same. It's always plus 6. So we say that this sequence of numbers here then is quadratic. Okay, so we've done linear, we've done quadratic. Let's just move this up a little bit, and we're going to have a look at cubic equations, or cubic sequences rather. So now we're going to look at cubic sequences. So let's take the numbers 2, 10, 30, 68, 130, and 222. So again, we're going to do the same process again. We're going to look at the first change, and we find that it's plus 8, plus 20, plus 38, plus 62, plus 92. So these are all not the same, obviously, so we're going to do it again. So we just look at the differences between these numbers. So the difference between plus 8 and plus 20, what we have to do there is add 12, and we have to add 18 here. Then we have to add 24 here, and here we're adding 30. So our second change is not the same, so what we're going to do is do it once more, hopefully. The difference between 12 and 18 is plus 6, plus 6 and plus 6. So you can see here that the third change, or the third difference, so our third change or difference, all the same, all plus 6. So we've done it 3 times, so this is called a cubic sequence of numbers. Okay, so the last one we're going to look at is the exponential sequence of numbers. So here I'm going to take the numbers 10, 20, 40 and 80. So again, we do the same thing again. So we're going to look at our first change. That's going to be plus 10 plus 30 plus 40. If we do it again, we get plus 20 and plus 10. So our first and second changes are not the same, and in fact if we do it again and again, we're not going to end up with the same change at all. So we find, if you go back to the original sequence of numbers, what you actually find here is that if you double 10 you get 20, if you double 20 you get 40, if you double 40 you get 80. So in fact what we're doing here is doubling each term, or multiplying each term by 2 to get the next term. And that kind of a sequence of numbers is called an exponential sequence. Now you don't have to double it necessarily, you could triple this number. So for example, you could have 10 and then go to 30. So we've tripled, multiply 10 by 3 to get 30. And the next one would be 90, and so on. So, or you can multiply by 4 to get 40, and then 100. So you could have, say, let's take the first number, say, as being 10, and say we multiply by 4 to get 40. Our next number would be, for 4 is 160, and so on. So these are all exponential sequences. This sequence of numbers, you're multiplying each term by 2 to get the next term. This one here you're multiplying by 3 to get the next term. This one here you're multiplying by 4 to get the next term. So that's called an exponential sequence. So these are all the types of sequences that we're going to use, or we're going to come across in this course.